Welcome back to Becoming a Published Author is Fun. And if that title confuses you or you want to know more about it, I do have an episode 8. Go there and you'll find out more about why it is fun. But today we are in episode 18. And as a continuation of the last episode that was called Inspiration, and we got into character building. Now I want to follow that up today with some more on character building. Now, if you'll remember, we were doing the 4 W's and the how. So, the first W we're going to look at is the who. And one of the things that we covered was multiple people, real people, people you know, or people that you know of. Multiple people. You can get their idea, what they look like, their eye color, are their lips thin or thick, or are the eyes themselves, are they the shape of them perhaps, maybe the ears, the chin. You can get so many different characteristics just in describing the face of the person. And it can come from different people you know. You, believe it or not, when you meet people, you file away information about them. You may or may not consciously think about them, but eventually the next time you see that person, you recognize them. And there's something about that person that triggers the thought. Think about this. You walk into a room and you see somebody walking across. You don't see their face. There's either a back view or a back, side, or a combination of the two. And you look at it and you say, "Oh, that's Ann. That's Bart." How'd you know? There was something distinctive about the way they walked, the way they held themselves, so forth. And that's filed away in your brain. Well, what I'm talking about is using that file for your stories. You have a ton of information filed away in your mind, and that doesn't even come up unless you think about that person. So when you're coming up with an idea of who you want to, or the kind of character that you want, that's when you start. Oh, wait a minute. I know somebody that's just like that. And then you start thinking about that person, and all of a sudden, all that information flows up, and you can pick what you want and use it. It's a list you carry around with you all the time. You can make out a list if you want. In fact, I would encourage you to do so, to not just rely on that list up here, but to also write it down so that you can look at it, study it, and just draw out maybe even more characteristics. The more you think about that person, the more, oh, this works, this doesn't. And pull it out and see if you can make use of it in your character building. So that's the who. The who can be based on more than one person, but it's best if you use multiple persons. The next thing we have here is the how. And we looked at that. And that's how do they react to any kind of news, good, bad, or indifferent, or situation? How do they do things? Their mannerisms. How about that? Some people have a different mannerism in which you see that mannerism, and that person's name will pop right into your mind right away. So different things and how they do things, how they learn. One of the things that, for instance, that my wife did, my wife knew shorthand. And we would sit together in church, and we both are note takers. I write stuff out. She would use what I called chicken scratching. I couldn't make a sense out of what I saw all these lines like this and that, and maybe that. They make no sense to me. And these are not actual. I may have written something there and I don't even know it. But she knew what it was. And then she could go back later and turn it into English. But she could really take some pretty fast notes that way. Whereas I'm writing out words, she's got maybe one symbol or two symbols that does the same thing. And so that was a characteristic that she had, a talent that she had. I can take that and incorporate it into somebody else, into my characters, for instance. So that's something that you can do. Different things that you know, that how they do things, the things you've observed. Where? Well, where did they live? How about where they worked? Where did they go to college? If they went. That's another thing. Did they go to college? So the wheres of their life. You can use the same person over and over and over again for different things. Or you can use one person for the who, one for the how, one for the where, or you can use multiple persons for each one. And so when you get all done, you have a multitude of people who have contributed to your character that you're writing. Now I'm talking primarily here of your primary character, but you use these same techniques for your antagonists and your secondary characters. Another one that we looked at was the what. Their experience. What kind of experience in life do they have, in work, so forth. Or how about their knowledge? And there's different aspects of things that you can just keep on going on, making your list longer and longer, of what is it that they have that they can contribute to your story. And so that is pretty much everything we covered, and I've already added to it a little bit. But today I want to look at another part here, and we're going to call this use. This is a very important thing. And I've told this story before. I wrote a book. Actually, it was the third book that I've ever written. And the Bat book became the basis for a series, the World That Perished. Yeah, that was right. The World That Perished, and that book had many characters in it taken right out of the Bible. And that book had those characters, multiple characters with the same name. There may have been 2 Methuselahs, 2 Noahs, 2 Enochs, and so forth. Well, this person who was doing a review of the book skipped his way through the book. And he then criticized it because he had come up to the same name, and he said, oh, the guy's personality is totally different than what it was back here. Well, he's right. He was. What he missed was the fact that, and I always made sure that you could know which character was talking or performing in the story. And so this brings up the subject of consistency. Now, this guy missed it because he skipped. Most readers don't skip, not unless they're bored or some other thing is causing them to lose interest. And they're eventually going to stop reading the book anyhow, if that's the case. But this is a term that I want you to bury in your mind. Memorize it. Focus on it. And use it. You want to be consistent. All these characteristics that you've been developing up here, they need to be consistent. They got brown eyes at the beginning of the book and they got blue eyes later. The only way that's going to happen is if they have colored contact lenses. So if that's the case, then you want the reader to know they got colored contact lenses. And that could be true. You may actually have somebody who's goes under disguise or something, so they put the contacts in. You want to make sure that where they're putting it into their eye and everything, you might make that even a scene, so that the people know, oh, that's why the color is different. You want to be consistent, and you want to be real. Now, some people take that to the extreme, and they'll have that person swear a lot, use a lot of four-letter words and things. Well, that might be true in their world that they live in, that everybody swears. Not true in my world, and it shouldn't be true in your world. If you're a Christian and you're going to church, you should know a lot of people who never use a swear word. Now, there are other words to express the same feelings, not swear words. You can use words that convey your frustration, that convey your anger, that convey this emotion or that, and that is real. And you want that to come out. Well, let's say your character is not a Christian at that point in time or ever in the story, and that person is in or a swear word might be what you would expect. You don't have to spell it out. People will fill in the missing word. So you can say he swore. You can say she said this or said, and then you can put little stars or something there. You can put a combination, a little code that I've seen in some books where different characters, alphabetic characters. It's different ways that you can show that the person is swearing. Believe me, the reader is going to fill that in with their own swear words. So you don't have to worry. That's not something you need to worry about. And I would definitely recommend you not ever do that. You want to be consistent and you want to be real. So at this, let's see, what else? You want to use all this information, and it sort of ties in with being consistent, but they must fit. I'm going to say fit together. They all must fit. For instance, a person who reacts in anger to everything, you can't also have them be mild-mannered. If that person reacts in a negative way here, how does that fit with who they are? How does that fit with what their experience is? Or how does that fit with any of the different things I've talked about? You want the different aspects to fit together. You're going to end up with a very confused character, or confusing character, and a confused reader. You have to be almost a little bit more, I don't want to use the word square, but maybe less complicated than in real life they might be, because the more complicated you make a person, the more difficult it's going to be for the reader to have that all. Because remember, they're not just focusing on one reader. There's multiple, or character rather, and there's multiple characters. So you want them to be able to have certain characteristics that really focus in on. I think of the Hardy Boys, and one of they had their friend was on the chubby side. The author, that was always brought out in all the stories, and so that's just a characteristic. But it was one in which people, that's I think his name was. He might have had the nickname of Chubby. I don't remember. It's been a long time since I've read Hardy Boys. But anyhow, that's my what I wanted you to get across today. That character building is essential to your book. You want your characters to be real. You want them to be consistent, and you want them to fit your story. Every story. If they have a characteristic that doesn't fit, then maybe you need to change that, or eliminate it, or just ignore it. But in any case, you want your characters to fit the story so that your reader can identify them, follow them, and by the way, one of my books that I wrote, I think it was the first book I ever wrote, I asked different people that had read the book, who is your favorite character? My mother-in-law, I thought she would pick a certain character that I was one of my favorites in the story. She didn't. She picked one of the other characters. Now, it doesn't matter why. She may have told me why, but everybody's going to have a different favorite. They're not all going to be focused on that primary character. That primary character may carry the story, but it may be one of the secondary characters that they really, really like. So you want to be all of them to be consistent and all of them to be real. That's it for today's episode, and I will see you in the next episode.